Hello, and welcome back to Kaylani and Jade's Corner. This is another episode based off of the Red Lair series. And today's episode is all about blindness, in a sense. So, we are going to be discussing the third book in the Red Lair series, which is titled Blind and Free. It'll be the same format as the last podcast episode. So, we will have the synopsis first, then a chapter or snippet, and then I will define some terminology for you guys and then read out some basic facts and compare them with the book. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about Blind and Free, which is the third book in the Red Lair series. It features a blind character named Jakita. She is the head mistress of the Red Lair, which is the hottest BDSM club in Columbus, Ohio. And it also features Joseph. He is a submissive male who is dealing with an alcoholic and abusive home life. And he hopes that Mistress Jakita can help him and give him the freedom that he so desires. So without further ado, we're going to start with the synopsis, move into the snippet, and then we'll go from there. Yes, mistress. Mistress Jakita runs the Red Lair, the hottest BDSM club in Columbus, Ohio, while managing her own stable of compliant submissives with an iron fist. She is hot, sexy, and always in control. Joseph Riles dreams of escaping from his alcoholic father and an abusive home life. Could the woman who stares at him from the Red Lair's website hold the key to his freedom? When a vicious assault robs Mistress Jakita of her sight, her entire life is thrown into turmoil. No more the controlling dominatrix. She must rely on strangers to help her eat, dress, and even use her phone. Joseph saves her from the attack and sees the brilliant woman Jakita can still be. He can prove to her that she is the dominatrix he needs and loves, if only she can open herself before it's too late. Warning, this book contains depictions of violence and mentions alcoholism. Mature audience is required. Handcuffed to the St. Andrew's cross, with his nipples clamped and his dick locked inside of a cage, Jarvis was quiet as I stared him down. His skin was beautiful, muscles shaping his body perfectly. Not for long, I thought as I swung the flogger through the air. I watched his face, his blue eyes searching mine. I stared into those eyes, daring him to open his mouth. You have disappointed me, bitch. You know that I hate disrespect. Let's count your infractions, shall we? You were late for our session. You didn't obey me right away when I told you to kneel. You brought me dinner even though I didn't ask for it, and you were hard when you arrived. 40 lashes, slut. He opened his mouth to speak, but the flogger landed across his upper thighs, and a loud cry came from deep within. I maneuvered around him, allowing the spikes to connect with the backs of his thighs, his upper back, and on his forearms. On the 10th hit, I grabbed a paddle, yanked his front towards me, and smacked his ass, back, and in between his legs. At 15, I picked up a belt. I now want you to count with me, slut. If you mess up, we'll restart. He whimpered, and I swung the belt as it connected with the side of his stomach. 15, he whispered. I can't hear you, Jarvis, I spat, swinging the belt again. It connected with his right inner thigh, so close to his dick. Next time, I won't miss. As he counted, his voice rose and fell with the hits. I had alternated between a whip, a wooden spoon, and had used my fingers to scratch and claw at his dick and balls. Tears fell from his eyes as I picked up the wooden spatula. We had reached 30. Welts and marks adorned his body, and I laughed loudly as the implement connected with his upper back. 31. Mistress, I'm sorry, he said as tears and snot ran down his face. The next 5 varied from his legs to his stomach, and as I looked into his eyes, I saw the pain, the weariness, but also the pleasure as I slapped his dick with the spatula. I stepped a few feet away from him and swung it at his balls. His screams surrounded me, bathing me in a glowing light. I reached out, and as I slapped his dick with the spatula, I released his right nipple from the clothespin. As he shouted 39, I released his other nipple, dug the edge of the spatula into his ball, and told him to come for me. His body convulsed as he screamed my name, and my clit throbbed hearing the need in his voice. I dropped the spatula and slowly uncuffed Jarvis. His body collapsed into my arms as fresh tears soaked my bare skin. I rubbed his back and carried him over to the queen-size bed that sat in the middle of the room. His arms surrounded my neck, holding on for dear life. I sat down as I rocked him. "You did good, baby boy," I cooed into his ear. "You have pleased me." I'm sorry that I disobeyed you," he said through his sobs. I just wanted to surprise you." "Oh, honey," I said as I wiped his tears away. "I forgive you. Now rest." So I hope that you enjoyed that snippet. That scene was taken before Mistress Jakita went blind. I don't want to spoil how she goes blind. I will say that it is vicious and it is heinous. This book also was hard to write because having sight and then going blind is not something that I've experienced personally, but I know other people have, and I know it can literally leave you feeling lost and like you don't know what to do. Now is where I will give you guys some terms with definitions regarding blindness, and then I will give some facts, and then I will relate those facts and terms to the book. So, first term that we have here is legal blindness. Is when your field of vision is less than 20 degrees or your vision is 20/200 degrees or less in your better eye. The term blindness is a condition of being unable to see because of injury, disease, or congenital condition. Vision that cannot be corrected with glasses or contact lenses is also considered blindness. You are considered blind if your visual acuity is worse than 3/60. I'm not sure what my visual acuity is, but I guess I should mention here that I am blind. I've been blind since birth. I was born premature, and because of that prematurity, I also have glaucoma, and I also have retinopathy of prematurity. None of this applies to Jakita per se, because she went blind later on in life, and she, wasn't born blind. But I wanted to define these terms and let you know what some other facts are. Globally, at least 2.2 million people have a visual impairment. And the last fact is the leading causes of visual impairments are cataracts, age-related macular degeneration, glaucoma, and diabetic retinopathy. None of these happened to Jakita, but I felt like I needed to share this information with you guys because the reason that I started this podcast was because of the fact that I am interested in BDSM. I write BDSM, erotic romance, and gay romance, and I'm blind. And I write about blind characters. And disability is misunderstood as well as BDSM. There's a stigma surrounding disabled people and sex. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, people don't believe that disabled people have sex, and they believe that, there's someone standing next to us holding our hands, guiding us through whatever we're doing. Out there in the world, someone believes that we have a caregiver who is helping us to complete basic tasks, such as recording a podcast episode, having sex, fixing our meals, wiping our asses. We are blind, yes. The only thing that's different about us is that our eyes don't work. We can start families, cook, start our own businesses, go to college, learn a language, have sex. We can do all these things. And it's not because someone is standing next to us, guiding us through the process. We just learn differently, and we have accommodations for the things that we need. I hope that you guys took something away from this episode. Jakita was sighted before someone took her sight away. As it's mentioned in the synopsis, the first day that she's determined blind, she is so overwhelmed with emotion and just doesn't know what to do with herself that Joseph agrees to take her home, and he agrees to run her a bath and get her ready for bed because he sees that she is clearly not in the right emotional state to be alone or to even be dealing right now. Can you imagine waking up tomorrow and not having your vision at all? What would you do? How would you cope? Thankfully for Jakita, though she didn't want it, Joseph was constantly there for her, and he didn't want to give up on her because he knew that he could get her back to being the mistress that everyone knew and loved. She was in therapy, yes, and she was getting a lot of support from the state, but it wasn't easy for her. There's also a mention of self-harm in this book as well, so I just have to, warn you guys. I will put a link to the book in the description box of this episode, and I hope that you guys will pick up Jakita and Joseph's story because it is a powerful one. Next week, we will be talking about blindness again, but in a different way. Next week's episode is on Blind and Bound, which is Cyrus and Jenny's story. And they have an interesting story as well. So, for now, have a wonderful day and ta-ta.